Hey Sam, how's it going?
Yeah, going good. Big couple of weeks, really. I've
You think
got
so? Actually, I kind of feel like it's been a little it's weird to say slow because
yeah.
it moves so fast, but compared to the last one we did, it seems a little more more digestible.
You know why I think that is because I'm just running at a million miles an hour now, and I'm like so something comes out and I absorb it, and then I'm spending weeks after it exploring it, deploying it,
Yeah.
trying to execute on it, and so I've just been doing so much stuff in the last couple of weeks.
Well,
Yeah,
I know no code came out, and that's a huge one for
yeah. So
you.
the biggest realization I've had, and my view has, I guess it's somewhat evolved, but now I'm like very set in my ways. Like the best way to get the most out of vibe coding is to actually truly understand what the AI is doing. So basically understanding how to code, not write every line of code, but at least understand the architecture, how to architect a perfect application, how to prompt the AI to do specific things. That is the biggest unlock that I've found with this vibe coding trend. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that vibe coding is going to be massive, like absolutely huge. I think the market for vibe coding is probably as big in the next 5 to 10 years as Excel is. I truly believe that. At the moment, the realization is that you just got to know what's going on, and that's what I've been spending a lot of time doing. Is that I'm working on about 5 different apps, but I'm spending a lot of time learning how to code while I'm building them. And or learning how to build really well architected apps while I'm building. And so yeah, that's what no code. I literally built it for myself. And interestingly, it's the first app where I worked with my developers in combination and with AI. So I built the prototype. I vibe coded the prototype in 2 days, around about, and then I handed it off to the developers, and then they took it to the next level. They took it, far, far better, far faster than I ever would have. And now we've got this really cool app, and I just, and they control it. They manage it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I saw a really smart post the other day. I can't remember who posted it, but what they said is that the place where vibe coding is really going to have the impact is not so much in final applications, but in requirements development. So the fact that you can put together an MVP really quickly and, kind of show the developers exactly what you want it to be and do,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to kind of iteratively going back and forth the way you used to do it. They were saying they thought that was going to be the biggest change that would really stick. And I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Totally. I've been saying this for months now. I think I even said this last year when I started using these tools. I said no developer is going to lose their job or lose their relevance. They're actually going to become more relevant. There's going
Yeah.
to just be way more work than there ever was. There's 10 times the amount of software to create. There's just going to be AI augmentation throughout the entire development cycle, from the prototype stage to the actual production stage. Like my developers are using AI now to help them. They didn't a year ago. They were really against it. And then a few months ago, I said, look, these models are getting better. We need to get ready as they get even better. We need to start using AI more in what we're doing. They don't love it. They don't love it like a lot of senior developers that you maybe read online and you see posts about it, but they're using it. They're using it, and it is certainly helping. And they're actually using no code as well. Like we've built it. I've said, look, no code's only going to have value if you get value out of it as well. And so that's sort of where they've taken my idea and then sort of taken it to the next level, so that it's good for vibe coders, but also even those who are coding for real. The biggest unlock, like I read something this morning on LinkedIn. Um, the developer said, "Oh, vibe coding's not that, not all it's made cracked up to be." But I sort of want to counter that and say, a lot of senior developers, right? They might have been very good at a specialized language or something, but vibe coding is opening up this entirely new world that they can venture into as well, like different languages, different
Right.
frameworks. Like one of my developers was a PHP developer, and so she's incredible at PHP. But now she's learning Python. She's doing Python codes, Python apps, and doing it all with AI. And so there's a massive unlock for everyone here. Everyone from like those just starting out, but also those who are in the development world, who know how to code, who know how to architect. You've got such an advantage when you actually know what you're doing.
Well, I don't know if you read that O'Reilly piece a couple of weeks back. It's called "The End of Coding" or something. I
Yes.
thought it was
Yes.
great,
Oh,
and
that was a great article. Really
it
great article.
was. And the point he made was that the only developers who are going to lose their job are the stubborn ones. And I think that same thing holds true for analysts.
Yeah,
That
exactly the
the
same.
people who don't adapt and learn how to use these tools are going to get left behind. But the tool itself is not going to displace anybody.
As we've discussed in prior weeks, it's just a more powerful computer, a more intelligent
Right.
computer. And I think I actually kind of wrote about this during the week because I some comment someone made really got my interest, and and not to me, but just somewhere else I read, and
Right.
and
Right.
and then I thought about it, and I was like, there is no such thing as an AI strategy. Like AI is just like a computer. It's just like saying you've got a computer strategy. That's kind of
Right.
where things are at now. It's how you apply the AI to do stuff, to build new things, to optimize processes, to automate stuff. Like that is the strategy. It's actually more of the sort of same things that we were doing before, but just like plugging AI into everything.
It was interesting. I saw a Stanford study, and they said there was one factor that determined overall how successful you were going to be with AI,
Yeah.
and it was whether you treated it as a tool or a coworker.
Mm.
And the people who treated it like a tool, what they said is that they would prompt it, it would return a bad response, and they would say, "Well, this tool sucks," or "It's no good at this." The
Yeah.
people who treat it like a coworker would take the response and say, okay, that response isn't any good for these reasons. Like you'd coach it up. You would say, okay, like here's why that didn't work, or here's why that response was not helpful to me.
Mm.
And what they found was that, particularly with the increased memory of the systems and the ability to go back and incorporate your past prompts and everything, that if you were willing to spend the time kind of coaching it and guiding it in terms of what you wanted, you would get an order of magnitude better interaction and result from it. And I thought that was fascinating, because we've talked a lot about how both of us are
Mm.
starting to treat it more and more human like,
Mm.
and it really underscored the point that if you do that, you're going to get way better returns than if you just treat it like any other tool.
I remember saying this to you, I think a month ago. I said, if you're looking for perfection with AI, you're looking in the wrong place.
Right.
It is an augmentation, but I think your analogy is better actually. It is a coworker. It is going to be multiple coworkers for every
Right.
individual, isn't it? And that's
Well,
that's sometimes the issue I have for some reason, probably because I'm now into the dev world. On my LinkedIn, I have a lot of developers saying, pointing out all the flaws of vibe coding, which there are some. It's not perfect. I've always stated that it has a few flaws. I think they're getting better, by the way, but it certainly does. They're looking for perfection. They're looking for perfect code, maybe because their code that they write is perfect. But as you and I know, like just getting the job done is honestly fine in a lot of cases. Like code doesn't need to be every file of code does not need to be perfect. Every formula does not need to be perfect. Every dashboard does not need to be perfect. Every VBA coded solution does not need to be perfect. If it gets the job done, it's probably fine. It's probably fine. That is a legitimate application, a legitimate optimization of something. And so it all circles back. If you're using these tools and looking for perfection, I think you're always going to be disappointed.
well, and the thing is, if you're looking to humans for perfection, you're going to be disappointed too,
Yeah.
because we don't deliver that either.
Yeah.
Um, there was a guy named I don't know if you follow him on LinkedIn, a guy named Peter Gostev. He's the
Yes.
head of AI for a company called Moonpig, and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
insightful, smart guy. And he said something the other day that I thought was the best analogy. He said, AI is now better than me at almost every task I do. But the thing is, I am now like a movie director. That
Yeah.
the thing I do is I kind of guide all these individual pieces into a coherent vision. I'm the one who has my name on it. It's kind of my brand, and their work. And
Mm.
I just thought, that is exactly the right analogy. And having the guiding vision and then using the right model in the right way to accomplish it. And I think with, the rumors about, DeepSeek R2 and what that's going to be, it's
Mm.
going to be way better than us at everything soon.
Yeah. I mean, I've felt that way for months now. I mean, even a year. I mean, even though 4.0, right, certainly didn't get things right in very niche areas of expertise, but in general terms, it was very, very smart. But now these new models are just like taking things to another level. I mean, I just sit on O3 and just like ask O3 and for ChatGPT. I just ask it
Yeah.
questions all day about everything, just to get its vibes, just to get its ideas, because it's so good for me. It's so good for my own creative thinking, just to have that plugged in. I mean, it's just crazy to think about how much this has evolved in a couple of years, isn't it?
You know what I've started doing, which is somebody suggests this to me, and it's just the best thing you can add to your custom instructions. It says every time you respond, give me four other related ideas to riff off of.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
And it just the better the models get, the more useful those suggestions become. And I find it opens up this almost every question becomes a brainstorming session.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's really, you should stick it in, just it's a one liner to put in your custom instructions, and it
Mm.
is it is dynamite.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Um, the director analogy, that is basically how I feel now when I'm
Yeah.
developing my applications. So I'm getting very quick at developing applications because I know what I'm doing. I sort of know what I'm prompting. I'm not getting nowhere near as many errors from the AI because I'm
Yeah.
catching them before they happen. Because I just understand more now than I understood months ago. But at the same time, the models have got better. They truly have. Like the models, like Gemini 2.5, ChatGPT 4.1, which is just an API model for coding,
Right.
they have gotten more precise. They have, and this is only like 2 or 3 weeks, like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Um, I showed you. I developed this social media clone, completely working. Had
Yeah.
it front end, back end, database. I spent 15 hours on it. 15 hours to get to that
That's
point.
that's
I mean,
crazy.
absolutely insane in my opinion, right? That would have easily taken 200, 300 hours 2 years ago. Would have cost 50 grand, 60 grand, maybe. I don't know, like probably around that. I mean, I spend more on apps with less features than that.
Yeah.
Like over the last 5 years, that's completely transformational. And I'm hoping we're getting to a place like, because I feel like I'm the one, I'm the human in the loop is actually slowing it down. I'm talking to this person. I'm talking to this person on Twitter. I'm saying, do we think that we can actually prompt windsurf, cursor, lovable, just get it to prompt itself overnight while we're sleeping, and then come in and like sort of just give it a plan and come back in the morning and have this sort of scaffold of the app done, and then you're just like touching it up. I'm hoping that I'm sort of exploring how I'm going to be able to do that, so I can actually get the agents to work when I can't do it. Because I just feel like in a lot of cases at the start of building something, I'm just getting in the way. I honestly am.
It's fascinating. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because just yesterday I saw this article where it talked about kind of Moore's law for agents,
Mm.
and what they're finding is that the period between when they can get 51% or higher average success on a task of X duration is like doubling every 4 weeks. And
Wow.
the line goes up like, just it hockey sticks straight up, in the
Mm.
sense that they were saying that if that pace continues by like early next year, we'll have agents that can do a 40-hour task, one human week of work in one shot. if that comes to pass, that's just going to be another just complete revolution.
Yeah, a few months ago, I was really doubtful about these AI agents doing everything, doing
Yep.
all your
Yep.
coding. Remember?
Yeah.
In the last 2 weeks, I've heard every major AI company, the leaders or some leader, say that AIs are going to write all the code. And so I think you can't discount that, right? So the head of Anthropic has said it. The CTO from OpenAI has said it. I just read Mark Zuckerberg said it on some interview of some podcast the other day. I haven't quite heard it definitively from Gemini, but I presume so. I'm just presuming. I was kind of doubtful a couple of months ago, but I mean, not all of these companies are going to lie, right? Like they're not all going to just talk BS. Like this, there is probably going what I just talked about, where the agent sort of just does a lot of it for you. Kind of feels like it's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen within the next year or 18 months or so.
It was interesting. Anthropic was really kind of shockingly honest in the sense that did you see that that article that Dario Amodei published about interpretability and how
No.
they basically were admitting that nobody really knows how LLMs work
Mm,
internally,
mm,
and that it's becoming, as they become more and more sophisticated and the reasoning becomes faster and faster and better, that it becomes incumbent on us to really understand more about how they work internally. And I thought
mm.
that it was both an incredibly forthright, honest admission and also kind of scary.
Totally. This leads me to my next big call, and I'm really interested to hear what you think, and we can go through why we think it might be. I now believe that AI is underhyped, which is crazy to think, but I believe it is underhyped. The impact it's going to have is underhyped. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that because it is so hyped, but I've realized that just saying it's overhyped is easy. It's easy to say that because that's what we've seen in the past. But
Yeah.
I just look at the verticals of AI. I look at some of the tools that are coming out that are sort of very, very new, and I think these are going to be so transformative. Absolutely transformative across every single sector of the economy, and it's going to happen so fast. I think it's underhyped. What do you think?
You know, I think that I think if you look outside of our little bubble, I think that's totally true. It was interesting. I was away for the weekend, long weekend at the beach with friends, and there were six of us, and two of us are deep, deep into this, and four are not. And
Right.
they're super smart folks. They're, three of the four have PhDs, the other has, a master's, and, so really, really smart folks. And the four really have very little connection to it, and really, kind of see what they see in the news, but, other than that, it doesn't really have much impact. And so I would say, if that's at all representative of the broader population, then yeah, it's definitely underhyped because I think it's going to have impacts for everybody soon. And
Mm.
right now it's kind of coding and marketing and certain relatively narrow segments, but I think as the models progress and the agents progress and the interfaces progress, it's going to really start broadening the circle of who it affects. And so I would say, for that largely unaffected circle, it is very much underhyped.
Yeah, and that's also why I think it's underhyped in general, is because there's just so much usage of AI across every vertical I see, which hasn't even happened yet. I like not even close. Like it's still so early in so many of these different modalities. Like voice is the perfect example. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I I believe that AI voice now. I mean, I use it quite a lot, but I don't think many people do. Like I was showing someone the other night how to talk to AI, and they were shocked. Like they were shocked, and then it was thought it was quite funny. I see it as actually an unlimited market because you could insert voice into almost anything, any two-way communication that we have as humans could have some sort of intelligent AI voice inserted in
right.
between it, right? And that could be scaled up so much, right? Like any business could have amazing customer service. They could have amazing voice AI on their website. They could have constant check-ins with their key customers by voice AI. It just honestly, it's just endless, I feel. And that's just one vertical. One vertical.
Yeah. I mean, the voice thing, I think, is particularly, kind of impactful for me because, with my Parkinson's, I often have difficulty typing. And so I'll have periods during the day when, I just can't really type. And so it really impacts productivity. And for 10 years, I've been using voice to text software. And for 9 of those 10 years, it sucked. It made errors, it crashed, it worked with some apps and not with others. Now there's a program called Whisper Flow that is based on OpenAI open source Whisper models, and it's in over 100 languages. You press to talk and you dictate, and you don't have to dictate punctuation, you don't have to dictate capitalization. It just nails it, like exactly almost every time. And even taking it counts basically word error rate, which is the number of words divided by the number of corrections that you have to make. And I'm getting consistently 90, 91, 97 words per minute corrected. And that, I mean, there are only a few humans who can type that fast. And, for me, it kind of opens up an enormous lane of productivity that I didn't used to have. And, I think, there are just lots of people who've got, whether it's carpal tunnel or Parkinson's or, whatever it is, it just opens a door of productivity that's remarkable. I mean, the fact that I can now just dictate straight to any app and with 99.99% accuracy is a miracle to me.
Yeah. And that's just voice input.
Right.
And just voice input, like the voice output where it's coming back at you in so many different ways and so many different styles and so many different personalities and so many different parts of your life. Like there's no finite market there. I feel like the market almost feels unlimited. That's just why I think it's underhyped, because that is one single vertical. I saw another app. Yeah, I've seen 2 other apps on social media that I thought were unbelievable as well. One was, and I think they're still early days in these apps, but it's a sign. It's a sign of what's to come. One was this AI film directing app. And what it did was you sort of came up with the outline of your movie. I haven't signed in, but I saw a video of it. You sort of prompt your way to the outline of your movie, characters, etc. And then what it does is it breaks down every single scene potentially in your movie. So a movie might have 200 scenes or something. It goes one by one with image creators and builds out every single scene for you. And then underneath that, it comes with all of the dialogue for that scene. And it does it all in one shot with one click.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just absolutely insane, right? Like when I saw that and I just stuck a few other things together in my mind, I thought, we are truly going to create movies ourselves within the next decade. Like everyone's going to be able to create their own movies. Like everything is combining. It might even happen quicker than that, honestly.
Yeah. And there's a guy, I don't know if you follow Rory Flynn on LinkedIn, but he's a guy in Brooklyn, and I think he kind of started off in marketing, and he does some of the most innovative stuff with AI video. And he's done some commercials, like some mock-up commercials for like Nike or something that he just did on his own computer. And they are phenomenal. I mean, they're as good as anything that's coming out, on TV or, online. And he just does them, with, commercially available software, some open source stuff on, consumer grade hardware. And this stuff is amazing.
Yeah. And, look, I don't actually, it's certainly going to this is the same happening in all industries. It's going to rewire the industry for sure, right? But I just think that the demand for that sort of stuff is going to go to the roof, like up to the moon,
Yeah.
because it's so much more affordable now. It's exactly the same with app development. It's exactly the same with text imagery design. It's all art. It's all the same. Yes, it is rewiring the value chain, I think, but it's making it more. It's going to make that quality more pervasive, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I watch movies differently now. I don't know if you do, but it's like I'm not, I haven't done much AI video, but I'm attuned to it from following some of these folks who are really good at it.
Mm.
And, I know now all the different camera angles and, the different,
Yeah,
kind of wide shots and high shots.
yeah.
And so I find I watch, stuff that used to be subconscious is now very conscious for me because AI has kind of brought it to the forefront as something you as an individual user can control. And so it's
Mm.
worth learning.
Well, 10 years ago, you probably had to pay $50,000 to go to a film school to learn that stuff, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And now you can just learn it with AI tooling and then actually create it. I mean, that is just a signal across all areas of the economy, isn't it? But think about yourself personally and like how big this is for your own personal agency, right? We've been banging on about this as well. Is that your skills are getting so diverse that you're going to be so skilled at so many new things,
yeah.
which is awesome. I mean, I can't wait to create my own music and my own Spotify playlist and variety of other things. Like I mean, you probably can already. I just haven't had the time to venture into that.
Right. I mean, video is still, like images. I can create, like, I have no artistic talent whatsoever, and I can create pretty good looking images for, my posts and stuff.
Yeah.
Video is another story. Like video, if you don't have some serious understanding of transition and angles and lighting, your stuff is just not going to look
At the
usable
moment,
at all.
but I think
At the moment, right, right.
that's what all the developers in that space will be targeting, right? It's like, how can we make this easier? It's exactly what Lovable have done or Bolt have done in app development, right? Like they've just made it so easy, so easy. You're just prompting a natural language. You're bringing your high level creativity to it, but it's doing a lot of the grunt work.
It's funny when you were saying like it made it easier because I was thinking, I kind of have my list of things that happened in the last 2 weeks that I wanted to chat about. And the biggest one for me is if you remember, like 2 weeks ago, we talked a lot about MCP.
Mm,
And my reaction was it's hugely impactful and a huge pain in the ass to set up.
mm,
And now that problem is beat. Like in 2 weeks, this
mm.
company called Pipe Dream MCP like beat that problem. That
Yeah.
you can now they've got 10,000 different 2,500 different servers, 10,000 different tools. You click on the one you want, you
Mm,
click install, it prompts you for what it needs to hook you in and put a security layer over it. And then it gives you a little code snippet and you just drop that in your config file and you're in. And it
mm.
literally takes like under 2 minutes. I can install a
Yeah.
new MCP server in 2 minutes now.
Is that just a Claude or is that to like anything?
It's not to anything, but it's to all the big ones. Like I think it'll do Claude, it'll do um Windsurf, it'll do Cursor, and I think it does Klein.
Yeah, right.
Um and so, I'm sure, I mean, the thing that I'm still kind of amazed about is that OpenAI has not released a client yet. I mean, I know they signed on to Anthropic's protocol, so Claude has been kind of in the lead for a while.
Yeah.
But I really thought, by now they would be throwing everything they had at putting out a really good client.
They release so much, like I probably just can't fit it into
Yeah,
their release announcements, honestly.
yeah,
Um, it's crazy. I mean, they just put 4.0 image on the API,
yep.
which I think is going to create thousands of new business opportunities and software opportunities. They,
They
um,
put a nice image gallery on that. Did you see that?
yeah, image gallery as well. Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah.
Saw that. And then they've just released, O3, O4 Mini.
Oh, 04 Mini, one of my favorite models now. Have you been
Yeah,
using that?
I just haven't used it that much. I use, like, as I say, I've been using O3 because O3 just gets rave reviews online for its intelligence, which is a weird thing to say about computers, but or models. If I have a thought in my mind, I just like pop it into that and I have a quick discussion. It's always very, very useful. But I haven't used O4 Mini. I just haven't had a chance. A lot of these coding, I've been spending a lot of time building apps, and a lot of them sort of just choose the AI for you now, which I think maybe has made them better, actually, because it's hard. I don't know how these things are built, but maybe it's hard to cater towards every single model within the experience of these things. And so it's better for them to just build around build around one model or a couple of models that they think are really good, and then choose when to use them themselves, and then they can sort of build controls around the AI better that way. It kind of feels like that's sort of what's happened in the last 3 to 4 weeks with these coding tools, and they've got a lot better. They're way more precise. So I've been spending so much time in there. I haven't had a chance to use absolutely everything that's sort of coming out. I mean, I have so many ideas, like I'm sure you do, and I want to do so many things. That's why I want these agents to start doing stuff overnight for me when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, at least you're going to sleep. Um, that the O4 Mini I really like because it's super smart and it's also quite fast, and
Right.
it's this really nice blend between the two. But when OpenAI announced that they were going to be doing that kind of automatic selection, I thought, oh shit, that's going to be their way of pushing us to using cheaper models and
Yeah.
making more profit. Maybe their naming conventions are on purpose, but it has gotten so confusing now that you've
Mm.
got O4 is smarter than 4.0, but O3 is smarter than O4. It's like it makes no sense. And so, it's getting to the point where even somebody like me who follows this stuff intently, I have
Yeah.
to think like, okay, wait, which model is the smarter model, which is the faster model? And it's like I've kind of gotten to the point if they throw one more round of these incomprehensible,
Mm.
name combinations, I'm just gonna say you do it.
I have a theory about this. I think OpenAI are doing it on purpose. Like, you and I agree, and I think everyone, like, they would know that all these models are kind of different. They have
Yeah.
different speeds. Maybe they're good at some things, not so good at the other things. And I think they do it as like a competitive strategy, because they always want to have a competitor to someone else's model out there. So if they just had one model, it's easier to go to Claude to go and do coding, right? It's easier to go to Gemini to do that. But if they have a suite of models that sort of cover all of those different things, that's a much better competitive position for them to be in, because then the alternative isn't worth going to. And also, when they're going to sell to enterprise clients, right, they can say, oh, we've got a coding one that's as good as Claude, we've got one with personality that's as good as Grok, we've got one. So I think at the moment, while everyone's jostling for position for AI leadership, it's truly a competitive strategy. Which is, it's, if you think about it, it's not, that is smart. That is really actually quite smart, rather than just having one model, because then everyone can just maybe transfer to some other supplier quicker.
Well, I think you're right, and I can't decide, whether it's a conscious strategy or whether the speed of development gets them kind of forces them into things that they're doing faster than they would otherwise do. Like for
Mm.
example, when Gemini 2.5 Pro came out, they snapped out like a week later with O3.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Gemini hadn't come out, whether O3 would actually be a model we would have seen, or whether they would have just waited and delivered O5,
They're just countering. It's totally due to competition.
responses.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because if they just say they just improved 4.0, right? They just improved 4.0 and they didn't bring something new out. They would, I don't think people would be easily pairing, right? It's easier to compare and contrast and be in the news and
Yeah.
you've got all these new models coming out with different names and things like that. It's truly due to it's a smart competitive strategy. I think they're very smart in what they're doing, particularly if you're trying to sell to enterprise, right? If you're trying to sell to
Right.
enterprise, which I think is absolutely what they're going all out on, and you want to be the AI supplier to like a large multinational, you've got to cover
Right.
every base, right? Like you can't just have one model and say that it does everything. I just think it will be too hard to for enterprise to really analyze that and know that, right? You just telling them won't be enough. But if you've got this huge suite of highly effective models that are good at some things and as good as alternative suppliers, I think you win. I really do.
Yeah, it's a really good theory because we've talked a lot about the stickiness issue, and the one thing I realize is I have no loyalty whatsoever. That
Yeah.
you know, a month ago I was all over like that Claude 3.7 extended was like my best friend, and now
Yep.
I don't even talk to it. That basically I switched to Gemini 2.5 Pro when that came out, and and Google did a really good job making that free, and so I think it kind of broke the Claude stranglehold among the kind of the frontier users. And then OpenAI came back with with O3 and O4 mini saying, okay, if you want smart, we got smart. If you want fast, we got fast. Um, and then Google fired back with Flash 2.5 said, well, if you want fast, we got faster. And I I find now that Claude just seems like a distant memory. Like the only thing I'm using Claude for is for my MCP client. And I don't even really like that because the one thing Claude is doing is I have through Pipedream, I connected an open router tool. So I thought,
Hmm.
okay, this is great. I can basically direct Claude to use whatever model it wants. And kind of like kind of like crashing at a friend's house and like making all kinds of charges on their credit card. They really don't like it. The Claude does not like when you call the Open Router tool, and
Oh, right.
it really it knows that you're doing it, and it will try to tell you it can't do it, and you say
Mhm.
yes, yes, you can. Like it's an MCP tool, and this is the tool to call, and it'll kind of be like, all right, you know,
Right.
but it's really interesting how it in general Claude does not resist too much, but on that particular thing it will really fight you.
Yeah. The biggest counter narrative that I have personally right now is those that are saying that the model doesn't really matter. You've heard that one, like the
I
model.
haven't. No,
Oh,
that seems nonsensical to me.
well, they're sort of saying the models are commoditized. You don't want to be doing the models. That game's already finished. Like that game's already it's too hard to compete at that level. Oh, maybe
Oh,
I've
so
got it
basically
wrong.
saying like that basically OpenAI is kind of marketing themselves as like a product company now, not as much a
Yeah.
model company. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that, and that makes some sense.
Well, I don't, I believe the models are everything. I believe the sort of the counter to that, and yes, it's like highly competitive out there. But if you have the best model, that's where everyone goes. So the models do matter. Like the model absolutely does matter. Still, yes, the products there's going to be a lot of money made on the product side as well. But imagine just having the best model that this exponential growth of AI usage gets plugged into. I mean, the opportunity is just so enormous. It's unbelievable.
Well, I think the thing that's going to be fascinating is if you've been following the R2 leak.
I read something, but I haven't really been keeping too far up to it.
So 2 days ago, apparently the DeepSeek R2 model leaked out briefly,
All right.
and and I, the statistics I've seen from it are astonishing. Like if
Right.
those end up being true, it's like a 1.5 trillion parameter model, and but only it's a mixture of experts, and so only a certain percentage of that are active for a given query. But the the smarts, the speed, and particularly the cost. And what they're saying is they have reduced the cost relative to the OpenAI models by 97.3%. If
Wow.
that's true, that
Even now,
changes.
because that was kind of what they did last time with R1, but you're saying even after OpenAI have been forced to
At,
reduce yeah.
this is relative to, I believe it's relative to O3. They've reduced costs by 97%. Now, I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah.
if it's even close,
Yeah. Even if
and
it's 50%.
I kind of actually believe it probably is true because, um, I think in some sense that the embargo of the high end GPUs really backfired,
Mm.
and what it did is I think it drove them to look for all sorts of efficient training approaches that maybe companies with an abundance of GPU power didn't focus on. And so it wouldn't at all surprise me if that enormous cost difference ends up being true. And if it is, then what they've got is they've got one of, if not the smartest models, and by far the cheapest model. And where does that leave the companies like Anthropic and OpenAI who are trying to market $200 a month?
Yes, I think, look, they might get, look, I think there's a lot of things playing out here. Like a lot of these companies are realizing, and you see this with a lot of the noise around OpenAI, is that you've got to be playing two games here. You've got to be playing the model game, but you've also got to be playing the product game as well.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of opportunities to make huge amounts of or create huge amounts of value by buying the product layer on top of these models, the top ones. So they were, I believe, looking to buy Windsurf, which is one of these IDEs that I've really liked for a long time.
$3 billion, I heard.
$3 billion.
Yeah.
Supposedly the numbers for this IDE are like a rocket ship, just like totally exponential. So it makes sense, right? Like if there's going to be 10 times the amount of developers, that's 10 times the amount of growth that you could get from these tools. And then they could obviously power them with their own models and get rid of all the other ones. Like, so yeah, so that's going to be a big game as well. And they've got so many different other products that they can get into. But we've said this before as well. Like the market is so big. I think there's going to be room for so many players, so many different products. Like it's almost like whoever moves the fastest at this point is going to do well. Like
Yeah.
and OpenAI are moving incredibly fast. They're moving faster than anyone. Even if DeepSeek comes in, I think last time we saw that there was a lot of issues with nationalism and things like that. No large corporate is ever going to, within the US in particular, is ever, and maybe even in most countries that align with the US, they're not going to use DeepSeek just because of where it's from.
Right.
Um,
There's been a
so
lot of talk here that it's going to get banned,
yeah,
which I hope it doesn't. But
yeah, I mean, that's just silly stuff. I do not see any executive at a large company agreeing to plug in an AI from China. I mean, I just don't. If you're not going to allow what I think it's Huawei, like the telecommunications one, like you're
yeah,
definitely not going to allow AI to be plugged into your systems, right? Like it's just crazy.
I mean, it opens the door for some really smart folks to kind of fill the gap, which is what you're seeing Open Router do and you're seeing
Yeah,
Perplexity do. That
yeah,
they run that R1 1776 model is DeepSeek R1 run
mm,
on US servers.
yeah.
And
Rock.
that's a smart business,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
by taking the open source license and basically mounting that in a way that is probably more palatable to the US companies and maybe some European companies.
yeah,
That's a great move. I actually that Perplexity API, I use that all the time because I actually still find that R1 is one of the best models for things like DAX code and M code. And so
yeah.
if I'm
Awesome.
running that against Gemini, which is the
Mm,
other one I think is really solid,
mm.
um, that I will run it through that 1776 server.
Yeah, yeah. A company called Grok, GROQ, which is the fast inference company. They had a similar thing where they run um, R1 through their servers, which are based in the US, and some other aligned countries, and super fast, super quality. Like, yes, I mean that's going to happen with R2 as well. I remember it's crazy to think how smart this thing should be, because remember you were testing R1 and it basically got no DAX question wrong.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, R1 is solved DAX.
I mean, and we were sitting there going, how much better can these things get? And then supposedly something's coming out that's way better. It's just, I mean, that's
I mean,
just mind blowing, isn't it?
it's totally true that I now have, for really since GPT 3.5 came out, I've been testing these in, against DAX, against M, against R, against Python.
Mm,
And Gemini 2.5 Pro was the first one that basically just saturated all my benchmarks. It one-shotted almost everything I threw at it, and so I'm like, how good is this thing? I don't know, because it'd be like it'd be like tracking a Formula One car with a radar gun that only does 95. It's
yeah,
like, well, it maxed my gun out. It's faster than that, but I don't know how much faster.
yeah.
Um,
I got a comment on one of my posts the other day. Was, should I learn pandas and Python? And I said, well, not the traditional way. Like these AIs know everything about Python. They'll the latest models, they everything. They can churn it out 50 times quicker than you could write it out. You're better off just thinking about the high level analysis now. You just think about the story that you want to tell. I mean, and you can even get AI to help with that. You know,
yeah.
it's crazy. That's kind of this is a good segue actually. So which we're hopefully going to release Power Vibes. I've told you about this a few times. And it's the Power BI helper tool, infused with AI throughout. We're still having a little bit of trouble with this like metadata download and making sure that it sort of works across different files and devices, etc. But the core of the app is very cool. It's very cool now, and this is a culmination of like lots of the things that we've been talking about and that I've been really shouting about online for a number of months now. Is that you can build these custom apps that have AI infused throughout of them to help you with almost like so many things now. Like, and you can bring your own creativity to how you can solve it. And so, basically, what we've done is you extract the metadata out of a Power BI report, a Power BI desktop report, and then we just run AI constantly, like 20 times through it in one shot, and give you all the different formulas and ideas and anything that we can think of at this point to help out. And then it gives you a good baseline of formulas and optimizations you can do, and then you can do a deep dive into any formula. You can do a deep dive into your data model. You can chat to your data model. These are some things that honestly Microsoft should have already done, but we're going to try and fill that gap with a lot of the latest capabilities that these models are enabling.
That's phenomenal because what I've been doing is I've been kind of doing that sort of thing, but in a piecemeal fashion.
Yeah.
So I'll use AI for DAX. I'll use it for theme generation. I'll use it for one of the things I really love is I've been doing some consulting recently, and I'll get a model from somebody, and it'll just be this spaghetti model,
Right.
and it's like, oh geez, it's like it's going to take me a while to work through that and figure out what their data model is doing, and is it wired correctly, and could it be
Mm,
simplified. And the interesting thing is you can just you can extract the BIM file or the TMDL, throw that in AI, and especially something like Gemini, which has this huge context window, so you never have
mm,
to worry about reducing the BIM file. It'll take a gigantic BIM file and not even blink,
yeah.
and then you can say, okay, talk me through the construction of the data model and
Yeah.
provide some suggestions for how this model could be simplified. And it's amazing when you can chat with the data model how much you can learn just by talking to AI, rather than sitting there trying to kind of section it off and trace through. Okay, I understand this relationship now and this relationship from the table. That you
Yeah.
can really, it's kind of like in the early days when the chat to PDF became a thing, and you could put your documents in and then question them.
Yeah.
That that kind of talk to your model is a really valuable, for me, is a really valuable way of orienting to a new report.
Yeah, it still amazes me to this day how many people I see who are not doing that, who are not doing what you're saying, right? Like this, they're not taking advantage of the latest models and doing a lot, like getting all their DAX written for them. It's kind of amazing, actually. Um, but the idea with our power vibes was, okay, some aren't still aren't doing this. Well, let's just automate it. So all you have to do is like upload your metadata. We'll organize and analyze absolutely everything for you. You don't have to prompt a thing. And then once we get that initial setup, you can then just learn about the formulas that are created. You can
Wow.
then chat to your data model in whatever way you like. So that's kind of the idea. I don't think it's going to be perfect V1. We're going to actually release it for free so people can just try it all out and give us a lot of feedback. But if it gets remotely popular, there's a lot of additions I think we can make to it. I honestly do. I think we can probably do more AI. Or like at the start, we can just do 100 pieces of like AI analysis that we could set up for someone. Like we honestly could. It's that cheap. Like even if we did 100 calls to an AI model to do run analysis and provide feedback, it would cost less than $1. I think.
Wow.
Like it would cost less than $1 to do that. Even like particularly using Gemini, because that's the one we are using 2.5 at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see. Like just like these AI coding tools, I think are going to democratize development even more. Let's see if there's a way to democratize Power BI, like true Power BI development and Power BI desktop. We're going to try to do the same thing with VBA as well. Like these are opportunities that I think are opening up for enterprise DNA. They're opening up for anybody. They're just all over the place.
What would be amazing with that. So a friend of mine figured out, and it's definitely a little wonky, but he figured out how to hook Power BI in through MCP. And
So someone has done that. Yeah, because I've
yeah,
been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this. That would
it's
be
it's
incredible, right?
it's wonky. It's a homebrew solution, and so it's a little wonky. But what it makes me realize is that if you were to build a tool like that and then MCP enable it, and then you
Mm,
could link that to Power BI, you
yes.
could basically say, okay, like through just voice command, you could talk to Power BI and say, okay, run these 4 DAX measures and see what the slowest one is and how much you can optimize it and see
Yeah.
how that improves report performance.
Yeah.
Or, change out this
Really.
theme and let's take a look at how the report looks. Or try this visual as a nested stack bar chart.
Yeah, totally. You know what my like it just leads me to this other like core belief I have is that opportunity I didn't even see like 2 months ago when I had the idea for Power Vibes, right? My core belief is that if I keep building, if we keep building, if Enterprise DNA just keeps building stuff, something will appear. Something big will appear because the improvements in everything is so exponential. The model might improve to do something new and amazing, like some agent protocol or some agent feature from might appear. MCP is going to appear. Like if you just keep building stuff that is within your circle of competence, and you're building valuable stuff, something is gonna happen. Something good is going to happen. Something big is going to happen. And that's kind of like one of my core beliefs in this AI era right now.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And I think, if you look at the old model where a lot of the MVPs would build like a tool that they were known for.
Yeah,
And, that tool was kind of the basis of their MVP, candidacy. And I kind of believe now what you're going to see is you're going to see the people who really know how to build stuff, just building tools like, and there's a guy, and I apologize that his name is escaping me, but I shouted him out in a DAX post that I did last week, and he built this really beautiful tool for automatically analyzing dependencies. And then he built another tool for, really nice theme generator. And I kind of, I don't know what his methodology is, but I would bet that there's some AI. Yeah. I would bet he's a very good coder who is also using AI as an assistant and is just producing these top-notch tools one
Mm,
after the other. And
yeah,
I think we're going to start seeing that, in kind of all, in all fields a lot more than we used to.
totally. Totally. That is what this democratization of app development or vibe coding is a sort of term it's been given. That is what I'm seeing. That is what it is opening up. It is opening up the opportunity for anyone with some expertise to then really do a deep dive into their expertise by building applications, by building services, by building automations, etc., within that area of expertise that just was not possible before. And that's what I'm seeing happening. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it personally. I'm seeing it in the content I'm absorbing. That is the opportunity. That's why I'm sort of, almost at this point I'm pivoting the entire business of enterprise DNA to this trend. Like I think it's that. I just
Yeah.
think it's that meaningful. It's that big. It's so widespread. Like not only in terms of where it hits, but all the different AI modalities that you can build down as well, like voice and image and text and code, and it's just unbelievably big. Something I would have never have expected, actually. Never, when we were first using ChatGPT 2.5 years ago, right? Like I just would never have believed that this is where things would go this quickly.
Yeah, we were just hoping it could write some decent DAX. If it
That's
could
right.
do that,
We
we were
were
thrilled.
wondering, is this going to impact our the training business? And yeah, it probably has. Um,
Yeah, probably.
but it's opened up this world of opportunity. I actually am comfortable saying now that I think that software and technology that we build at Enterprise DNA will be a much bigger deal in the next year or two than our learning business. I do. We will still have it, but I think that learning through AI is as good as learning through videos these days. Learning while you're doing. I just think that we're building such cool apps that they will have a much bigger impact. That will actually probably be the medium term future of Enterprise DNA, or things that I'm certainly involved in, whether it's named enterprise DNA or something else. Like, I just think that the opportunities there are just for impact, but also just like value generation are just so much bigger. And so that's where I'm sprinting as fast as I possibly can.
I mean, it was interesting today. I was on a call on a project, and we wanted to do something in the OpenAI interface, and it can't do it yet. And
Right.
we were saying, okay, well, we could build our own, and you build our own front end and just use the OpenAI APIs. And that is something 6 months ago I never would have said.
Yeah.
It's not something I could have done. And now I feel like I could do that no problem.
Yep.
It probably wouldn't even take that long. And I really think that it's this complete shift of, you know, a skill set that I never imagined even having. I never thought I would be, coding in HTML and CSS or React or, any sort of front end stuff, because it doesn't really interest me. What interests me is the data, but it's becoming a way to make the data accessible to people. And
Totally.
that does interest me. And
Yeah.
so, it's really, I think when you got out way in front on this, and
Yeah.
I will say, I was interested in what you were doing, but at times I struggled to see, okay, what's the link back to me as an analyst? Why would I need to do this? And now, all of a sudden, every time I come across a problem where there's not a tool that does exactly what I wanted to do for my analysis purposes, I just think I could build that.
That's exactly what I did with the social media site. I have this $200 a month subscription. It was annoying me because it wouldn't like, I'll tell you, I got annoyed with this thing mainly because I couldn't upload more than one image at a time to a post. There was the one thing that annoyed me. And because I want, when I'm creating a post in a little community site, I want to be able to upload 10 images, right? And it just took me so long. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to settle for this. And that's when I vibe coded in 15 hours my own social media / community site. We're gonna push it live at the beginning of next week. I can get rid of that subscription. I mean, that is just one example of like hundreds of thousands of examples that could play out. That will play out, I think, in the next 5 years. like it's going to happen that fast because of exactly what you said.
And I love the way kind of smart people are kind of figuring out how to fill the gaps. Like I talk about, pipe dream. And,
Yeah,
I love the way, because the thing that really concerned me about, MCP was what's the security? Am I piecing all these things together and am I opening up my system for, big vulnerabilities? So I was very careful about what I pieced together, but they've basically got a way now to kind of cover the security through their processes. And that's something that I can basically offload to them. And, so it really frees me up to say, okay, now even I could design, an MCP tool that does what I want it to do, that I could plug into my model and then use their security layer over top of it.
yeah. I always laugh when I hear security, but because security is the way for any entrenched software company to stay entrenched. Yeah. But in reality, I'm telling you, like security is also going to be the reason why these big tech is just going to get bigger, right? Because no one's going to use a smaller model in a large corporate. They're always going to use the models from the biggest players who spend hundreds of millions of dollars, like trying to keep everything secure.
Yeah.
These big tech companies are going to get so massive, even from now, which when they're already valued at trillions is kind of unbelievable to think, but they are like they totally are. It's AI is the most additive value generation for them I think you could imagine.